Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series where we briefly discuss and analyze important news of the day. Without delay, take a look at the headlines first. Latest debate around inheritance tax as a tool of wealth redistribution. Russia vetoes United Nations Security Council draft resolution on a weapon-free outer space. UNESCO releases 2024 Gender Report of the Global Education Monitoring Report titled Technology on Her Terms. The World Trade Organization is celebrating 30 years of Marrakesh Agreement. United Nations Conference on Trade and Development rebranded as UN Trade and Development. European Parliament approved the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. Starting off with the very first news, we will cover the latest debate revolving around the inheritance tax, which ought to be used as a tool of wealth redistribution. The use of an inheritance tax to address economic inequality is widely debated in India. An inheritance tax is levied on property inherited upon an individual's death. It differs from an estate tax, which is levied on the total value of a deceased person's estate. Many countries around the world are imposing an inheritance tax, like Japan with a 55% tax rate and South Korea at 50%. Currently, there is no such inheritance tax in India. However, in the past, an estate duty was imposed in 1953, with tax rates reaching up to a steep 85%, making it highly unpopular. This led to its abolition in 1985. Similarly, India had introduced gift tax and wealth tax earlier, which was scrapped in 1998 and 2015 respectively, though a new gift tax regime was reintroduced in 2004. The pros and cons of an inheritance tax are hotly debated as well. On the pros side, it could lead to higher revenue generation for the government, whereas critics argue that high tax rates could encourage tax evasion, avoidance, and distressed sales of assets to pay dues. On a positive side, wealth tax may reduce wealth inequality and promote equality of opportunity. On the other side, it may discourage people from working hard to create wealth and could also amount to double taxation if inherited assets were already taxed earlier. In conclusion, as India grapples with issues of economic inequality, the role of an inheritance tax as a tool for wealth redistribution remains a contentious topic with arguments on both sides of the debate.
Moving on to the next news. Russia vetoes United Nations Security Council draft resolution on a weapon-free outer space. The resolution jointly proposed by the United States and Japan would have required all states, particularly those with major space capabilities, to actively contribute to the objective of the peaceful use of outer space and the prevention of an arms race in outer space. But what exactly is meant by the weaponization of outer space? It generally refers to the physical placement in orbit of space-based machinery that has destructive capacity. However, a broader definition also includes ground-based systems that are designed for destroying space-based assets. Various systems can contribute to the proliferation of weaponization in outer space. These include missile systems, such as anti-satellite missiles and ballistic missiles, as well as the use of dual-use technologies like satellites, communication systems, and navigation systems like GPS for both civilian and military purposes. Moreover, space debris itself can be both an outcome of space weaponization and a potential weapon, posing risk to operation satellites and other space assets. It's worth noting that space-based assets are increasingly being used for assisting armies through communication, surveillance, and reconnaissance, further blurring the lines between civilian and military applications. However, the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 provides a basic framework for international space law and prohibits the placement of nuclear weapons or any other weapons of mass destruction in outer space. This treaty establishes the fundamental principles related to the peaceful use of outer space. It is also worth noting that India is a part of the treaty. In addition to the Outer Space Treaty, several other international agreements and resolutions aim to promote the peaceful use of outer space. These include the Rescue Agreement of 1968, the Space Liability Convention of 1972, the Launch Registration Convention of 1975, and the Moon Agreement of 1979, and the UN Resolution of Prevention of an Arms Race in Outer Space. While the exploration and utilization of outer space hold immense potential for scientific advancement and human progress, the specter of weaponization poses a significant threat to these endeavors.
In our next news, UNESCO releases 2024 Gender Report of the Global Education Monitoring Report titled Technology on Her Terms. The UNESCO report looks at the impact of technology on girls' education opportunities and outcomes, as well as the role of education in shaping future technological development. Talking on the impact of technology on girls' education, the report finds that information and communication technologies can help overcome barriers to education access for girls in crisis contexts. For instance, in Kenya, the M-Shul platform delivers education through text messages without needing the internet. However, a significant digital divide persists. 130 million fewer women than men own mobile phones and 244 million fewer women have internet access globally. Social media negatively affects well-being and reinforces gender norms with greater interaction at age 10 linked to worsening socio-emotional issues among girls as they grow older. Cyberbullying is also a major concern propagated by AI-enabled deepfakes. The report also highlights the role of education in shaping the technological development. The average share of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics or STEM is only 15% in female graduates and 35% among male graduates. There is underrepresentation of women in technological design and deployment. As by 2022, women held less than 25% of science, engineering, and ICT jobs globally. Negative gender stereotypes reinforced by low expectations is impacting girls' STEM aspirations. Wrapping up, take a look at some recommendations made by UNESCO. It recommends establishing bodies to evaluate education technology and algorithms for potential amplification of negative stereotypes or effects on well-being. It calls for encouraging more girls into scientific careers and promoting female leaderships in AI and technology. Crucially, it emphasizes investing in gender-responsive education and training over infrastructure-only digital approaches. The report underscores the need to make technology work for girls' empowerment while ensuring their representation in shaping those technologies of the future.
Ahead in the news, the World Trade Organization is celebrating 30 years of the Marrakesh Agreement. The Marrakesh Agreement, signed in Marrakesh, Morocco by 123 countries in the year 1994 after the conclusion of the Uruguay round, paved the way for the establishment of the World Trade Organization in the year 1995, replacing the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade as an international organization. But what exactly is the Marrakesh Agreement and why is it so important? Well, this agreement serves as the basic framework for trade relations among all WTO members. It expanded the scope of trade negotiations beyond goods to include services, intellectual property, and other topics, truly reflecting the evolving nature of global commerce. Moreover, the Marrakesh Agreement established the modern multilateral trading system, facilitating negotiations, dispute settlement, and economic cooperation among members. It also created the WTO's governance structure, establishing the Ministerial Conference as the highest decision-making body, along with the General Council and specialized councils. As we celebrate this momentous occasion, it's worth reflecting on the achievements of the World Trade Organization. One of the most significant achievements has been the lowering of trade barriers. Since the year 1995, the real volume of world trade has expanded by an impressive 2.7 times, while average tariffs have almost halved from 10.5% to 6.4%. Additionally, the World Trade Organization has played a pivotal role in the rise of global value chains, with trade within these value chains today accounting for almost 70% of total merchandise trade. But the impact of the WTO goes beyond just numbers. Its efforts have contributed to the fastest poverty reduction since the year 1995 and increased purchasing power in all countries, particularly in the developing world. Furthermore, the WTO has facilitated numerous international trade agreements and rules, such as the TRIPS Agreement, the Nairobi Package, the Trade Facilitation Agreement, and the ongoing Doha Development Agenda, among others. Let us also understand about the World Trade Organization itself. Established in the year 1995, the WTO is the only international organization dealing globally with the rules of trade between nations. Its primary objective is to help its members use trade as a means to raise living standards, create jobs, and improve people's lives. With 166 members, the organization accounts for a staggering 98% of the world's trade, including India. The WTO's reach and influence are truly global. Headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, its decisions are typically made by consensus. The organization's commitment to promoting free and fair trade remains unwavering. The 30th anniversary of the Marrakesh Agreement is not just a celebration of the past, but also a reminder of the work that lies ahead. As the global community comes together to navigate the complexities of international trade, the WTO's role in fostering cooperation, promoting economic growth, and upholding the principles of free and fair trade will be invaluable.
In our next news, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development UNCTAD rebranded as UN Trade and Development. This rebranding marks the start of the organization's 60th anniversary and underscores its commitment to increasing its global voice on behalf of developing countries. Starting off, take a quick look at the specifics of the organization. UNCTAD was established in 1964 as a permanent intergovernmental body by the United Nations General Assembly. Its objective is to aid developing countries, particularly the least developed ones, and help the economies in transition to effectively integrate into the global economy. It helps countries understand options to address macro-level development challenges, diversify their economies to reduce commodity dependence, and limit exposure to financial volatility. The organization has 195 member nations, including India, and is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Some of its key reports include the Trade and Development Report, World Investment Report, and the Least Developed Countries Report. Furthermore, let's discuss some of the UNCTAD's major achievements, which includes its role in implementing the Financing for Development Agenda as mandated in the 2015 Addis Ababa Agenda. For this, it works together with 4 other major institutional stakeholders: the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Trade Organization, and United Nations Development Programme. UNCTAD has also assisted countries under its Debt Management and Financial Analysis System program. In conclusion, with the rebranding to UN Trade and Development, the organization aims to amplify its voice and continue supporting developing and least developed countries in navigating global trade and economic challenges.
Ahead in the news, European Parliament approved the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive (CSDDD) or CS3D. CS3D aims to foster sustainable and responsible corporate behavior and to anchor human rights and environmental consideration in companies' operations and corporate governance. But what exactly does the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive entail? Let's delve into its key features. It mandates that companies follow a comprehensive due diligence process which includes methods through which corporations can account for their actual and potential adverse impacts, such as pollution, child labor, and other detrimental practices. Moreover, the directive requires companies to adopt a transition plan to make their business model compatible with the Paris Agreement's global warming limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius, underscoring the urgency of addressing climate change. Talking about its scope of coverage, it includes EU companies and parent companies with over 1,000 employees and a worldwide turnover higher than 450 million euros. Significantly, non-EU companies, parent companies, and companies with franchising or licensing agreements in the EU that reach the same turnover thresholds within the EU will also be subject to directive's requirements. To ensure compliance, the CS3D also lays out a framework for penalties in any case of violation, which ranges from naming and shaming to substantial fines of up to 5% of companies' net worldwide turnover. However, as with any far-reaching regulation, concerns have been raised about the potential challenges posed by the CS3D, particularly for companies from developing and underdeveloped countries. These companies may need to invest significant resources to comply with the regulation, potentially hampering their competitiveness in the global market. Despite these concerns, the approval of the CS3D by the European Parliament represents a significant step forward in the pursuit of sustainable and ethical business practices. By mandating due diligence and accountability for adverse impacts, the directive aims to create a level playing field where companies that prioritize sustainability and human rights are not disadvantaged in the market. The personality in news for today is Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan. He is in news recently as he was remembered on his 49th death anniversary. Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan was a distinguished scholar, philosopher, and a statesman. If we talk about his key contributions, he served as the Vice President of India from 1952 to 1962 and President of India from 1962 to 1967. Furthermore, he was elected to the Constituent Assembly, If we talk about his literary works, then it includes the principal Upanishads, the Hindu view of life, Dhammapada, and more. For his accomplishments, he was rewarded with the knighthood in the year 1931 and Bharat Ratna in the year 1954. Moreover, his birthday, that is September 5, is celebrated as Teachers' Day for his contributions to education and philosophy. He exhibited the values of wisdom, leadership, and sympathy.
As we conclude today's main news, let's take a look at some quick updates. Cardamom prices are rising rapidly because of low production due to the absence of sufficient rainfall. Cardamom is a dried ripe fruit or capsules of the cardamom plant. It is often referred to as the queen of spices because of its very pleasant aroma and taste. Blue whales have made a comeback near the Seychelles after 60 years. Blue whales are the largest and loudest animal on the planet. Found in all oceans except the Arctic Ocean, its lifespan is estimated at around 80 to 90 years. They sometimes swim in small groups, but are more often found alone or in pairs. UN Development Programme unveiled Climate Promise 2025, next stage of its Climate Promise initiative. It is an initiative to support developing countries on their climate action. It is the world's largest offer of support to developing countries on nationally determined contributions, enhancement and implementation. Climate Technology Center and Network marks its 10th anniversary. Headquartered at Copenhagen, Denmark, it was established in 2014 and is the implementation arm of technology mechanism of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The Commissioner of Food Safety in Tamil Nadu has directed officials to monitor use of liquid nitrogen in food items. Liquid nitrogen is a colorless, odorless, non-flammable, non-corrosive and extremely cold element. The market for network as a service in India is expected to expand from $1.18 billion in 2024 to $7.32 billion by 2029. It is a cloud service model in which customers rent networking services from cloud providers. Recently, Bangalore experienced a rare celestial phenomenon known as zero shadow day. It occurs when the sun aligns perfectly overhead, causing vertical objects to cast no shadows. Researchers found a biosphere of extreme microbes 13 feet below the Atacama Desert, which could inform the search for life on Mars. It is one of the driest coastal deserts and forms a continuous strip for nearly 1,000 kilometers along the narrow coast of northern Chile. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to the quiz and for the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.